Let's look at how parents can support autistic learners who are attending mainstream schools. Mainstream schools are schools that follow a standard curriculum which is implemented by the government. They are characterized by a group learning situation, and children in mainstream schools will write tests and exams and have to complete assessments in order to progress to the following year. Remedial schools are similar to mainstream schools in that they do follow a standard curriculum, but in remedial schools they will adjust teaching methods to accommodate the particular needs of learners who have disabilities or learning difficulties. Children with autism have language delays and difficulty managing social and group interactions, and this will of course impact their ability to function in schools, in mainstream schools. They also could fail to understand what is being taught or the content of textbooks and readers given to them. They also experience difficulties with paying attention and being able to follow instructions. And many autistic children have difficulty understanding abstract concepts. Abstract concepts are ideas that don't have physical form. For example, they could understand the word dog, but not understand the word late, because late is an abstract term and it also depends on context. And of course, learning itself, the process of education, is filled with, in fact, millions of abstract concepts. They also could have difficulties with motor planning, which will impact their ability to successfully complete tasks that are given to them. And they could experience anxiety or fear if they struggle in a learning environment, struggle to understand or to know what is expected of them. When possible, you should be available to help your child when he is completing his homework. This does not mean that you do the work for him. He will do the work himself, but with your assistance as and when needed. The more a child struggles and needs prompting to complete a task, the less likely it is that he has mastered that particular skill that is being practiced, and it means that he needs perhaps more explanation or more practice in order to master that skill. Keep a notebook, and in it you can make a note of various things that you will pick up on when your child is doing homework, such as concepts that he doesn't understand, for example, a particular noun or adjective, skills that he has not mastered, for example, he could maybe add in the hundreds but not be able to add in the thousands, words that he does not understand, problem areas that he experiences repeatedly, for example, he can't do word problems or he's not able to complete comprehensions. Consult with your child's teacher to make them aware of the deficits, and do what you can at home in terms of practice to help your child to better understand a particular concept and to learn skills. Remember that most autistic children will learn by practice and repetition, and that they would need more than the average learner at a mainstream school. If you do find that your child is having a problem in particular areas, you notice this when you supervise his homework, then try and speak to his teachers as soon as possible to explain to them that these are the areas he has been having difficulty with, and try to find a way forward where teachers are going to do something specific to be able to help him with these areas, or alternatively maybe develop an individualized education plan where he will have specific learning goals and they will help him with these. And I'll talk about the IEP a bit later on. Now, on the issue of lunches, pack a sufficient lunch and drinks for your child. A good packed lunch would include things like cheese, yogurt that is dairy, vegetables or salad, and a portion of fruit, a starchy food like bread, a protein food such as meat, fish, eggs, or beans. Processed foods can be included as a snack but should not form the main part of the lunch. For example, a packet of crisp or popcorn is a treat, but it is not, can't be considered the lunch itself, the main meal. If food keeps coming back and you see that your child is not eating it, try something different. Keep trying until you find something that your child will enjoy. And it's of course better to expose him to these foods at home so that once you know that he's accustomed to it and does eat it, then it would be advisable to pack it in his lunch. Also pay attention to food sensitivities and food allergies, and it's advisable not to send highly allergenic items to school, such as peanut butter, because there are children at school who might be allergic to this and might eat of your child's lunch, and your child would not be aware enough to be able to tell them that it contains an allergic item. A change to your routine can cause a child to be quite upset for the entire day, and he might fail to apply himself to tasks at school simply because his routine has been disrupted. And people at school might be confused about the reason for his behavior, and it would not relate to anything that is going on in the school. It would simply be that he has been upset by a disruption of his routine, and that this might have begun at home. Ensure that everything has been packed and arranged the night before, and this includes things like textbooks, uniforms, sports kits, and also check that all homework is completed and is in the bag. Your child's timetable should be up on the wall at home, as well as a list of all upcoming tests, projects, and outings, because remember that advanced planning and awareness is crucial for the success of your child in a mainstream environment. As much as neurotypical children need to know what is going to, what they will need to do in advance, this is more so the case for autistic children, and they need more advanced planning and more preparation. And so it's important to be aware of everything that is happening at school and every assessment, sports day event, etc. that will be happening. And where necessary, you will need to help your child to plan his work and to study for his tests in advance. For instance, if you know that he has a history test coming up maybe in 2 weeks' time, try and help him and guide him to study a section or a part of a section of work each day until he has completed going through the work, and then also has adequate time to revise and to go over what he has already learned. Some children with special needs might need what's called a shadow or a facilitator to accompany them to school and to be with them while they are at school. The facilitator will assist the child with all aspects of schooling, including additional help and guidance when it comes to completing tasks. Facilitators are meant to gradually reduce the amount of assistance they provide over time, so that they are helping your child to become more independent and then eventually completely independent. So facilitator or shadow role is meant to be phased out over time as your child becomes more independent. Don't wait for a crisis or a problem before you contact your child's teachers. Maintain a reasonable amount of contact with them at regular intervals so that they can give you feedback on your child's progress and information on where he needs more practice, and then also that you together with them can agree on the way forward in terms of how he's going to get this practice and how he's going to be helped to meet a particular learning goal. Some schools do have communication books, and teachers and facilitators can note down in your child's communication book what work was covered for the day and any other important information. It's not uncommon for teachers in a mainstream environment to run behind in terms of completing learning goals, and then they might place undue pressure on children by giving them deadlines too soon before a due date and without sufficient notice. And this kind of pressurized learning situation would be difficult for children with autism to manage, and could ultimately be detrimental to their well-being in school. Ask questions of the school so that you know what is in your child's curriculum and what he is going to be taught and what he will be expected to learn and to apply in tests for the coming year. It's a good idea to get textbooks and readers in advance, and for your child to read these textbooks and readers before lessons so that he has some exposure to content before it is actually taught, and this is an advantage for children with autism. The more exposure they get, the more advanced exposure they get, the greater the chances of them being able to grasp content at the time when it is being taught. Autistic children think in fixed ways according to patterns and rules that they understand and can apply. They lack flexibility of thought, and this creates an obstacle in learning because many problems or tasks in learning tend to be variations of previous tasks, and they require a learner to have a different approach or a different way of thinking, even though there are certain patterns that exist. Learning is about flexibility and fluidity of thinking. And this is why it's more difficult for an autistic child to do a wide variety of problems or to answer a wide variety of questions as compared to a neurotypical child. In a way, each task is new to an autistic child if a pattern is not being repeated. And so, of course, this creates many learning difficulties for children with autism. And all of this means that a child with special needs will need to work consistently, put in more time, and get more practice than his peers in order to manage a task independently. For you as a parent, this means that you will need to help your child to get this additional practice and exposure, whether inside or outside of school hours. If you take a practical example, let's say in geography your child has to learn to locate a place using points of latitude and longitude, then he will need to practice the skill multiple times, more than the average child, using different maps, practicing both inside and outside of school. And with all of this in mind, understanding that more effort is required on the part of an autistic child in order to meet a learning target, we still need to remember that your children are children. They need time to rest, to play, to enjoy life, and they should not be in situations that are perpetually distressing or anxiety provoking for them. In many instances, children with autism who are in mainstream schools will be expected to work and perform at a level that is above their capabilities. This is inevitable because they enter schools with the disability, with the language and social disability, which affects the entire learning process. And this is the case even though we might have mainstreaming environments where teachers are prepared to make accommodations, to alter learning material, to have IEPs. One cannot alter every single aspect of learning. You will alter some aspects, some methods of teaching, but it will then come down to content, and much of this content may be above a particular child's capabilities. So a mainstream environment has the potential to trigger stress and anxiety where it's not a correct fit for your child's capabilities. And in the long term, this can be detrimental to your child's well-being, and it could also really be detrimental to his ability to learn and to make progress. So before taking this step, it's important to try to establish whether your child will actually benefit by being in this mainstream environment. What will he learn here? What will be his learning goals? And will he be capable of managing these envisaged learning goals? Will this learning environment seek to address the core aspects of his disability so that, in fact, when you look at him within this learning environment, is he going to make progress, and will his quality of life be improved by being here? Let's look at some of the basics that need to occur when your child is in a mainstream school. All homework must be completed. All textbooks must be read, and important parts are to be highlighted. Your child needs to learn to make summaries of his reading material. Activities in textbooks need to be completed, as well as perhaps exposure to other activities in other resources and references. Your child needs to read daily, not just his textbook or reader, but books outside of school. He needs to read both fiction and non-fiction. He needs to be exposed to current affairs. He needs to work on increasing his vocabulary by reading and looking up unfamiliar words. Many children with autism struggle with comprehension, so comprehension activities need to be practiced regularly. There is an excellent resource called Teach Me Language, which I've put up the cover here. It is by Freeman and Dake, and it provides a simple guide for helping children with autism to build academic skills, a whole range of academic skills, such as how to summarize text, how to write on a particular topic, and so on. I would recommend it as an invaluable resource, as a precursor for children who then eventually go into high school. Some children with autism have comorbid conditions that do require medical support. An example would be anxiety, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and in such cases it may be necessary for your child even to take medication daily. However, this is a matter for you to consider together with the relevant health professional. Choose wisely when it comes to extramurals and sport. Consider your child's natural abilities and what he enjoys. Remember that team sports have a social and awareness element that can be quite difficult for a child with autism to manage. Things like netball and soccer, for example. But on the other hand, individual sports like swimming, athletics, freestyle dancing can be good choices, or even possibly a sport like tennis, which only involves 2 people. If your child needs special accommodations in a mainstream environment, he would need an individualized education plan or IEP, which can be used to help him reach his specific learning goals. The IEP is a team effort which will involve you as the parents, as well as your child's teachers and also therapists such as speech therapists and occupational therapists. For example, if your child needs speech therapy, this could be included in his IEP. And if he needs extra time during exams to complete a paper, this could also be included for him. If he needs to have certain activities adapted, for example, he needs questions to be amended or simplified, this could also be included in his IEP. An autistic child may experience various social difficulties at school, and these could include struggling to make friends, being isolated from group conversations, group play, and playground activity. Talk to the school about creating a social group where a small group of children could meet daily to talk or play together. Something like this would have to be supervised for a teacher. Remember that with the isolation of autistic children, it may not be something that they would communicate to others, but obviously it affects their entire time at school, so it's not something that should be ignored, even though it's not part of what schools tend to focus on. And some schools have also done things like peer programs, where a classmate takes an autistic child under the child's wing and provides friendship and support to that child in class and on the playground. You could also look at arranging play dates outside of school with children who are in class with your child, where these children can then come home, or you could go on outings together and your child then gets to spend time with these children outside of school, and this could then help to forge social relationships and be a way of helping them to make friends. The expectations that we have for our children may not always match their abilities. If this is the case, they will experience many problems in mainstream schools, where they will be expected to meet learning targets that do not correspond to their actual strengths and abilities. In primary and elementary school, we learn to read, but in high school, we are reading largely independently in order to learn new things and to gain knowledge and skills. So things then turn around. We go from a place where we learn to read, which children with autism can do, many of them, to a situation where we read in order to learn, and this is an independent process. So where the reading and comprehension difficulties of an autistic child lags behind his peers, the process of education can become fraught with many challenges. Learning and understanding is a fluid process, a flexible process, and it is strongly based on comprehension. Learning is not bound by fixed rules and patterns which occur all the time. And so we do need to ask ourselves whether a particular environment and course of action would suit our child and would be in our child's best interests. Ultimately, I think we would want our children to learn in the way that they are able to learn or capable of learning. And this is not always about ticking boxes, the box of primary school, high school, college. It's not about meeting society's expectations. It is about actually looking at your child and seeing how may my child learn best, how may she progress best. It is about helping your child to grow and to be purposeful and also to be happy.